Hey y'all, here we are today. Today we are talking about what to know about Black girl depression because the reality is it looks different for us than it looks for everybody else. So, hey, I am Rashida. I help Black women redefine who they are without work as the core so that they can become that woman. So, on this channel, I talk about letting go of workaholism and the idea of anything that makes you feel like you got to be a strong Black woman, yeah, we're getting rid of that too. Okay. Plus, I also share practical ways that woman that we want to be can emerge. So I talk about all of that, but I also talk about, the fun stuff like eating good food, traveling, and physical wellness. So if anything in that atmosphere sounds good to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like, and then make sure you share it with another Black woman who is on her way out of this too, because this is a space for us to be safe and real and find healing together and then dream and move forward to all that we've got for our lives to become. So, there are some really good videos out there about this topic, about Black girl depression, but a lot of them are coming from these really big platforms like Good Morning America, TEDx, and all of those different things. But listen, there are Black women who are living this, who are healing from this, who are working with therapists, who are getting help in a regular day life. And I wanted to talk about it from our perspective. And so that's why I invited Dr. April here today so that we could discuss it. Dr. April Brown, welcome. So thank you for coming.
Hi. Hi. Thank you
Yes,
so much for having me, Rashida.
it is my utmost pleasure. So let's just go ahead and jump in. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
Sure. So I am Dr. April Brown. I am a licensed therapist, wellness expert, and business consultant. So pretty much I help people and businesses prioritize their mental health, elevate
Mm.
wellness, and embrace their self-care. And on my YouTube channel at the Wellness Room ATL, I help Black women navigate racism and workplace issues.
I love it. I love it. Navigating racism and workplace issues. It goes so closely, so deeply related because this channel specifically talks to Black women, corporate professionals, entrepreneurs. Like we are in the mix of this stuff day in and day out. And it can
Hmm.
feel so lonely to try to navigate this stuff if we don't have support. And so I'm glad that we're here and I'm excited to really show that there's support out there and that they're not alone. I know that not everybody's talking about it, but I'm excited for us to talk about it today. So, that being said, the first question I have for you, especially as a therapist, what are three myths about Black girl depression that you tend to see people like believe?
Oh, yes. So the first thing I would say is just that depression means that I'm sad all the time.
Mm,
As you mentioned earlier, Rashida, depression looks different in everybody, but these are some of the symptoms that we have to make sure that we're aware of and that we look out for. Number one, I would say that being irritable or moody is
mm,
definitely a symptom of depression. On
yeah.
top of that, emotional exhaustion, having certain physical changes such as pain, fatigue. You may have also a lack of appetite. Another thing that is common when it's associated with depression is panic attacks and
Mhm,
anxiety. A lot of times people think, "Oh, it's just anxiety. I'm anxious," but if you're having some of these other symptoms, it may not be anxiety. It actually may be depression.
mm,
And let me see. I don't want to leave anything else out. Oh, having sleep issues as well.
mm,
Another thing, another symptom that is also common with depression, you might feel you might see yourself more isolated, more
mm,
withdrawn. So not also a disinterest in the things that you used to do. So let's say you used to like going out, hanging out with your friends. You might be experiencing some social withdrawal, maybe even a little bit of social anxiety as well. And so the symptoms of depression are quite I would say can be quite lengthy and it's easy to confuse it with something else that may be going on. But one of the things I would say also when it comes to depression, sometimes we may not notice the symptoms, but being mindful of some of the coping mechanisms that come with depression. And some of the coping skills that we use for depression typically are substance abuse. So you might be drinking or smoking. You might be engaging in some retail therapy, okay, overspending. You may also be binge eating or overeating. Sometimes we see under eating as well, but a lot of the coping skills tend to be, just the binge eating, the shopping. What else do we typically see with the depression? And that's just kind of like a few of the things, but mainly, just unhealthy coping mechanisms. You may also be engaged in a lot of partying, trying to escape, looking for ways to ignore kind of what's going on with you. So that's a few of the things. So depression doesn't mean that you're sad all the time. There's a lot of different symptoms that come with it, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that you went into that as like the first and foremost myth. Because I recently I want to say literally 2 weeks ago, when I was doing the research for this video, I was watching
Mhm.
another video and I was listening to some of the symptoms, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what's wrong with me. I'm depressed." Cuz here's the thing. I love what I do. And here's the thing with most of us Black women, we love what we do. We love showing up for our people. We love it's not we've never been scared of hard work. We believe in this stuff, and sometimes we get so tired and so busy moving and so busy doing more and more that we don't even realize our cup is empty. And then before we know it, we are irritable. Our we're more snappy, and we think it's, oh, just because we're tired of the kids, or just because all of these other things are happening, but we're not realizing that it is a symptom of our depression. And that was exactly what it happened to happen to me. I was literally kind of just living life, and then
Yeah.
in March it was my birthday, and something happened with my mom, and that took out the rest of whatever was in my emotional cup. And all of a sudden, I was so tired, and I really couldn't understand why. I really was like, I literally don't understand why. And
Yeah.
everything was like, please just leave me alone. Just get out of my space. Just like I really just wanted to scream, and it makes me emotional right now because I'm not saying that I have fully figured it out, y'all. Like this is real
Mhm.
right now. This is something that I'm processing, and I'm excited to be in this conversation. But I also think it's beautiful to say it in the midst of it,
Yeah.
because for us, again, we think that means that we should all be just that it looks like cuddling up on a ball and not doing anything. But we as Black women, we don't have the freedom to do that. I'm a single Black woman. I got bills to pay. Like I can't just go cuddle up in a ball. Like I still have to be high functioning while I'm also experiencing all of the things. So in this, I know we only talked about one myth, and we can get back into it, but another question came to mind because you talked about coping versus healing. How do you describe the difference between coping versus healing?
Mm. So I think that's such a great question, Rashida. And what I will say is that when it comes to coping and healing, so there's both positive and negative coping skills. So let's
Mm,
just say that,
mhm,
okay? The negative coping skills kind of medicate, right, or suppress the issue that might be going on with you, or the
mhm,
depression in this case.
yeah,
Okay, but when we talk about healthy coping skills, these are typically skills that you learn in a setting such as therapy,
mm,
that you practice and that you learn with your therapist. And these skills actually help you to navigate the depression. It helps you to cope with the depression, but at the end of the day, the healing and the coping and the positive or the healthy coping skills go hand in hand.
mm,
Okay, and
mhm,
so when I think about healing, and moving away from this place of coping. And when I'm saying coping, I mean moving away from those negative coping skills, the ones that are not helping us, but actually hurting us and
Mm.
causing us to suppress those, suppress the depression. Um, you have to be honest with yourself. That's the first thing. You know,
Mhm.
being honest and saying, hey, something is going on with me,
Mhm.
right? And then also being able to have the courage to allow yourself to feel. You
Mhm.
cannot heal if you don't feel. You
Mhm.
have to feel to heal.
Mhm.
Okay. So allow yourself to feel as well. And then just us making sure that we're considering getting support from the right places. So, of
Mhm.
course, I'm going to say go seek therapy because I'm a therapist, right? But I'm also not going to tell anybody to do anything that I don't do. Like, I've been in
Mhm.
therapy for 19 months for every week. Like, I don't miss therapy.
Mhm.
I'm there. I'm
Yeah.
there every week. And so, going to therapy will help you to identify the underlying problem and what is causing the depression. A
Mhm.
lot of times it's
Yes.
connected to our childhood trauma, upbringing, some things that we haven't processed. And what happens is a lot of the unprocessed and unresolved trauma turns into the depression. The
Mhm.
depression and the anxiety that you see may be stemming from some unresolved trauma.
Mhm.
But back to healing, so going to therapy, getting that support. And also another thing I want to say that I didn't mention as a symptom of depression also is a lot of times people feel spiritually disconnected.
Mm.
Okay. So that's why it's also important that we are getting in support groups, whether that's a faith based support group, a mom group, getting in a book club with with some girlfriends, with some sisters. And then also considering, like, do you feel spiritually disconnected? Is this a time that you need to be trying to rebuild or rededicate your life to Christ or whatever, religious belief or preference that you have? Is also essential. But there's tons of sister circles that you can get in. You're not the only sister out there with depression.
Mhm.
A lot of us are struggling with depression. And I know for me, just speaking from my own personal experience, I was the person, I guess you could say the high achieving Black woman, right? I had it all. Like I had the house, I had the career, I had the husband. Life was good. But even when I had everything, I
Mhm.
was depressed. I
Mhm.
was depressed. How am I depressed and I have everything I
Right.
worked so hard for, and I know you're gonna ask me a little bit about the work responsibility piece. We'll get into that. But it's one of those things where getting to a place where and I had to accept, going through therapy and working through some of my trauma and things like that, you know, I'm actually happier doing less. Working less
Mhm.
is good for me.
Mhm.
And, now I have less and I'm happier.
Yeah.
So, it also wasn't until I started rejecting some of the societal norms and
Mhm.
expectations that are placed upon us as Black women that I started to find my freedom, that I started to rediscover myself and heal.
Yeah. I think you just touched on two more myths that I really want to like lean into.
Yeah.
One of those myths were that just because I have accomplished everything, just because I'm successful, there's no way I can be depressed. That is an
Mm,
absolute myth. Okay. And then the third myth is that we think if we've achieved this version of Black excellence, we kind
mm.
of put on that face. And then there's no
Yeah.
reason that we should be and that we should be depressed. Oh, I know what it was. The third myth is that we could bulldoze our way through depression. And you actually said one of the main ways to really get to this point where we're healing is that we have to stop and actually allow our feelings to feel, and a lot of us, especially us as Black women, which I think is a huge reason why we do
Mhm.
get depressed even though we have so much, is that we have never really been given space or really been taught how to sit in and
Yes.
process our feelings, nor do we always have the people to process them with. One of the things that I had to be careful with when I started realizing that I was depressed is that some of the people around me right now, their way of dealing with things is not really allowing their emotions, and they just keep bulldozing their way through. And I have been in my effort to really move from being a strong Black woman and really bulldozing myself to keep doing more. one of the ways that
Mhm.
I've been healing from that has been allowing myself to acknowledge my emotions and be okay with them. And so completely agree with you when you say not everybody is the best person to be with you while you're healing.
No. No, ma'am.
You
And
know?
nope, when I tell you God got rid of everybody, any unnecessary baggage, anything I was carrying, whether it was people, places, or things, it had to go.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to also understand too when you are on your healing journey. Sometimes, and I like to say God, because that's just what it is for me. God
Mhm.
will move you away from everything. Sometimes we don't even realize the friends you have, you trauma bonding with them.
Mhm.
Y'all are friends because of some childhood trauma or hurt that it's connected you to. And as you start to heal and grow and change in your journey, you realize that you can't even have a normal conversation with these people. Their
Mhm.
mind, their kind of thinking, the way that they are doing things, it doesn't align with the new better version of who you are. And
Yeah.
so that's also a sign that you're healing when you start to notice that
Mhm.
like you're being separated from folks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not intentional, it's just those relationships just tend to just kind of go on, and then you meet new people and you
Yeah.
find better and healthy relationships that work for you. But I also think it's important that I touch on this myth too, Rashida. Oftentimes people think there's if I'm depressed, then I'm not depressed because I'm not suicidal, or depressed means
Mhm.
I'm suicidal. You don't have to be suicidal to be depressed. Black women actually have one of the lowest suicide rates.
Mm.
So depression does come without suicidality. So that's
Mhm.
important to mention. And then this is another thing I hear a lot. I hear a lot of black women say, "Girl, it's just my period. It's my cycle.
Mhm.
It's the hormones." Which a lot of times it could be depending on age and if you're going through perimenopause or menopause. We know that. But a lot of times people are having crying spells at the blue, and they're just shaking it off to, "Oh, it's
Mm.
just my hormones. My period's about to come." Pay attention to that,
Mhm.
because if your cycle is nowhere in sight right now, and it's gone, it's been 2 weeks gone, and you're not in the at the stage where you should be experiencing any menopause, then the crying spells could also be linked to depression.
Mhm.
And so that's also another symptom that's very common, is you just cry out the blue. You don't know what, when, where, why. You just crying.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that because you're right. There's so many of these little myths that we have not really had anybody say, "Hey, you're using this to justify why it can't be." But I want you to pause for a minute. I want you to take a second to be okay. I want to give you permission to be okay
Yes.
that this is not okay. Like, I want you to
Yeah.
give yourself permission that this is not okay and actually sit with it and allow yourself to feel it, because then when you stop justifying it, you can actually start to see some trends. You can start to recognize how some of these
Hmm.
things are coming together and recognize
Yeah.
it's more than you've given it space to be. Because let me tell you this. 2 weeks ago, when I watched that video and I finally was able to put to words that I was depressed, let me tell you, that was the first step of healing. I could already start to feel better by just being able to put a real word to it. Literally, my whole spirit was like, oh, this is it. And now I can take a deep breath. Now I can move from
Hmm.
wherever I was into this place of healing and starting to feel better about it, and I'm not saying it happens overnight because it doesn't, but there was an immediate
Mm-mm.
feeling of like, okay, now that I know what's wrong, I can start working to fixing it. So
Yeah.
pause and take permission. Like, if nothing else, I really stop for a moment and like pause and take permission.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's power in putting a name to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. When you can finally identify it and then acknowledge it,
Mhm.
that's definitely the start of your healing journey for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, if we're thinking about some of the root causes, and specifically I want to talk about it around like corporate professionals, entrepreneurs, long-term travelers, because these are, in the sense that these are three groups of women who have it all, but you can still feel loneliness during long-term travel. You can still feel like you're overwhelmed and burnt out in your purpose. You can still feel unfulfilled in your corporate job when you're supposed to have everything. Like
Yep.
these are the places where we're supposed to have succeeded, but we can still have depression. So how do you feel like those things play into the depression that we can that we might be feeling?
Well, ooh, so for that question, Rashida, we got to take it way back. So first of all, we cannot ignore that systemic racism,
Mhm,
which stems from slavery, colonialism, all of those things that are just been embedded and ingrained in our society.
mhm,
And what has happened over time is that Black women have tend to identify with some of the, how do I say, tend to internalize some of the racism. So, what that
mhm,
looks like, some of us struggle with imposter syndrome, superwoman schema, right? So that's have basically you're prioritizing caregiving over your own needs, right? So we selflessly care for the needs of others while neglecting ourselves. And then we
mhm,
see the strong black woman syndrome, which you mentioned, the strong black woman. We have to be strong, be
mhm,
resilient, suck it up, push through, all these things we've been taught. We black women are resilient, we're strong, and yes, we're all those things. But we have to also remember that we're allowed to feel weak sometime. We're allowed to feel we can be weak and strong. We
mhm,
can be we're allowed to be vulnerable, right?
mhm.
So many of us won't even be honest about how we feel
Yeah.
about other people, let alone ourselves.
Mhm,
So it stems from a lot of different things, and but I think a big root cause of it is just a lot of the racial trauma, a lot of the trauma that's been passed down generationally. So the generational trauma, and you got to think about it. If our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents identify with these things, it's just been passed down
mhm,
generationally. They're teaching you what they were taught, and a big part of healing and a big part of your journey, just of becoming free of depression, is you're gonna have to unlearn some things,
mhm.
and you're gonna have to put the right things back in. Learn the right things, take the wrong things out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, with depression too, is rooted in our thought patterns,
Mhm,
and how we see and how we view things, and those are things that you can process in therapy. But to answer your question in a more succinct way, Rashida, I would say that overall, it's just a lot of societal norms and expectations that have been placed on us that are creating the depression that we see, especially in high achieving women like
mhm,
our entrepreneurs and our corporate professionals, and Black women professionals in general. So a lot of those things, and then really us also. Um, Work being too much of a big part of our identity.
mhm,
And I like to say this, sometimes I think that we view work as the foundation of our success
mhm,
and a contributor to our own self-worth. And that's the problem.
mhm. Mm, mm. Girl,
Mic drop.
girl. Because here's the thing. I'm so passionate about that. And that's really why I created my whole program. Because when I left
Yeah.
corporate America, I said, you know what? This ain't never been the whole of who I am. But you know what? It also made all of my dreams dry up. I'm going to go out and find me some new dreams. And
Mhm.
that's why I love doing what I do. Now, here, that doesn't mean I'm perfect. That doesn't mean that I don't have emotions. That doesn't mean that I have days where I don't have depression. Obviously, here I am. And yet, I have figured out how to reinvent my identity without me being an entrepreneur as the core of who I am, or being a
Yes.
corporate professional as the core of who I am. Who I am is an emotional human that loves to encourage
Mhm.
people, that loves to show up. And I am so sappy, girl. I don't even need to be depressed to cry, because I'm a cry because I'm in joy. I'm a cry because I'm not enjoy.
I
Like, I
love it.
don't care. I love to
I
be
love
that
it.
person, right? And then on top of that, I'm a dreamer. So I love being able to help women Let's step away from using our job title is not the most important thing about us.
It
We
is
got to
not.
step away from that and actually learn the core of who we are and bring that out. Yes, girl. Listen, you see, I'm getting
Yes, I
excited.
said, "Yes, ma'am," and that's the problem. It's the merging of, like, work and our life. You are not
Mm-hmm.
your life does not revolve around your work. Who
Mm-hmm.
is Rashida? Who is April outside of work? You have to have your own life. That's why I say work-life balance. You work, you do what you gotta do, and then you have your own life.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us don't even have visions for our own life. We
Mm-hmm.
have dreams, we have goals that are all invested in work. But what about you? What about what you want? Girl, don't get look, girl. I'll
Look.
say it.
You speaking my language. You speaking my language, Dr. April. You speaking it. Because that's the second thing we do in my program. I didn't even tell you any of this. We didn't talk about none of this beforehand. We just got on here to have a conversation. But yes, once you here's the thing, we don't have a vision for our personal life because all we've ever been taught was to plan our career. So when we actually take work away from being the core of who we are, then a lot
Mhm.
of us are like, well, what the heck? Who am I? So then once I help
Yes,
you figure out who you actually are, now we can start dreaming without that being the core. Because guess what? Your dreams are going to look a lot different than what you've ever thought they could, you know? And
yes,
that's a
yes.
beautiful, beautiful thing. Girl, girl. Okay. Listen, let's get back. Let's get back. Because we're going to go
And look,
on and on.
listen,
Listen,
I
we
could talk
honestly should
all
have did this
day.
live because this was a thing right here. We should have did this
Listen,
live. We're gonna have to
I
do
am
it again.
we might need to. We might need to.
We're gonna
Because
have to do
listen,
this
who
again.
I am in your entire program, I'm literally a physical example of that. Like
Mm,
how I let go of everything. Like I'm not gonna say like everything, but the career, like I had the good job, I had the house, the car. I don't know if you know this, Rashida, but I recently sold all my stuff and I
mm,
started traveling full time. And I haven't worked at a full-time job since March 2020. And honestly, and God is really working on me with this, but this whole work harder on yourself harder than you work
mm,
on your business, right?
mm,
Work harder on you harder than you work for that job,
mhm, mhm,
right? So when you
mhm.
do that, you start to discover like, wow, there is this peace, when you just start to follow your own heart and do what it is that you're passionate about, and we just gotta let some stuff go. I don't know. I've been hearing people say that Black excellence is the new. I forgot what they're calling it, but even that term in itself is kind of detrimental for us
Yeah,
identifying with this Black excellence persona, so to speak. It's harmful,
it is.
because I'm a person who has 5 degrees. I have like 4 licenses. I had it. Like I said, I had it all, and I still wasn't happy.
Mhm,
I still was depressed.
mhm,
And through your healing journey, I like to say this too, like we can, and that's another thing that we do, I think in the Black community a lot of times is that we just want to, I'm just going to give it to God. I'm just going to pray God to take care of it. He'll heal me. All that is great. Let me tell you, yes, he will, sis. Yes, he will.
mhm.
But he wouldn't put beautiful people on this planet like myself who are mental health therapists, who are counselors, who can actually help you navigate this stuff and actually get the healing you're looking for. So we need God and therapy. I'm just gonna say
Yes,
it.
yes,
Baby, you can have
yes,
God and therapy. You can have
yes,
both. Oh my gosh.
yes.
I have literally been doing both simultaneously for the last 19 months, working on my relationship with God and attending therapy. And I don't even recognize myself.
Mhm.
And I'm not even who he want me to be yet. I'm in transition. I'm becoming her, but even the her now, I'm like, girl, Dr. April, who is you, girl? I have to remind myself, but I've come a long way, and that's just because you have to put in the work. Like
Mhm.
you got to prioritize and then this is another thing we have to remember. You prioritizing your mental health, your emotional health, your physical, your spiritual health. It's an act of self-love.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And allowing yourself to dream again, all of those things, reinventing your identity, all of those are acts of self love. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So
Yeah.
then I love this too because we're talking about it from a therapy perspective and a coaching perspective. And I want to pause and say what I see the difference is when I think about it from a therapy perspective, you are really digging into helping people relieve the trauma, even, childhood and even current trauma that might be happening. Whereas a coach is me as a coach, I'm not going to help you with that. I'm
Mhm.
going to send you to Dr. April. Instead, what I'm going to help you
Yeah.
do is I'm going to help you get your dreams out of your mind. I'm going to help you get them down on paper. I'm going to help
Yeah.
you make that plan and actually make the shift. But you got to be in the process and open to
Mhm.
receiving the healing that Dr. April
Yes.
is going to help you get. And then I'm going to help you get the coaching that's going to help you really shift the life and switch your lifestyle to be less about work and more about living. Everything on my
Yes.
channel is work less and live more, but that is a
Yes.
lifestyle, okay? That is a
Yes, it
lifestyle
is.
that we're helping
Yeah.
you create. So, with that
I
in
love it.
mind, I want to
Uh-huh.
say for the therapy side, what's the easiest first step of getting out of the coping cycle? And actually, let's say it this way. Yes, the easiest first step of getting out of the coping cycle and into healing, or negative coping cycle, because remember there's both, and into healing. But like, also too, like, what's the first step of even finding a good therapist? I think both of those should go together, because I
Mhm.
think you have to first start opening your mind to recognize that you need therapy, and then you need help figuring out how the heck do I find a therapist.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is such a wonderful question. I'm so glad that you asked that, Rashida, because yeah, I want to say this first of all. Shopping for a therapist is like looking for like the perfect shoe to pop that birthday outfit. Sometimes you got to go to a few stores, baby, because everybody not gonna be the person for you. So a lot of times what I see, and this is very common, black women and black people in general will go to therapy. They'll go to that first few sessions. They're like, "Ooh, I'm not vibing with this therapist," and they never go back. They it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. I
Hmm.
want you to know that that is normal and that you shouldn't give up. You just need to keep on looking. Okay, it's okay for you to do a few sessions and then you move on. But I also like to say, when you found the right therapist, you're gonna know. You're gonna
Hmm.
know. And it's all about making sure that the therapist is a good fit. So the first thing I would say is you want to get on like, okay, for example, a platform that I recommend is therapy for black girls.
Hmm.
Okay, on that platform, all the therapists are black women, so you can go in there, find your therapist. You can put in your state, you can put in the type of insurance you got, you can put if you want in person or online, and it's going to filter the results based on what it is that you put in. So that's a great platform to go and check out if you're looking for a therapist. But also, I'm gonna give you a tidbit. So I actually have a freebie on my website. So if you go to my website, it's trythewellnessroom.com. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the first page, it's 15 questions you should ask before you
Hmm.
hire a therapist. I
Okay.
give you all the tea on what to look for, how you know this person's a good fit. So that's a great resource for you to use before you make your decision. And what else do I need to say about finding somebody? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And like I said, in my personal experience, I've been through a few therapists that was a no for me, but then I found the right one and I've been working with her now for 19 months. So that's where I would start. That's
I
where I would
love it.
start.
I love it.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful that you normalize the fact that finding a therapist is not a one and done thing. Just
Mm-mm.
let me be real. Finding a coach is not a one and done thing. Not
No, it's
every coach
not.
is going to be the right coach for you. That's why I have no problem having other coaches on here too that do the similar
Mhm.
things that I do, because we all bring
Yes.
something beautiful to this table, and
Mhm.
you need to experience the range of what coaches are and have some understanding of what you're looking for to find the one that works for you. But here's one thing I'm gonna tell you. Don't just stop.
No.
Don't just stop. Okay?
No.
Keep looking, keep talking to people. When someone says, I have a free 10-minute or a 20-minute consultation, have a conversation with that person.
Yes.
See if you
Yes.
vibe with them,
Yes.
or because we as black women are like, oh, they're going to try and sell me something. But That because it's a business, but that doesn't mean you don't
Yeah.
see if you vibe with them. If you get on there and you
Yes.
sincerely don't vibe with the person, say, you know what? I appreciate that you got on this call with me. I don't think this is a good fit for me. I'm going to keep looking and then keep looking. But here's the thing.
Yes.
Any coach, any therapist will respect that you actually tried and that you made the space to be open and receive. So don't hold yourself back from having the conversation, number one, and for two,
Yes.
being honest of whether you feel like it's a fit or not, because it's almost like dating,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes,
you
ma'am.
know?
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's what I did forget to mention. Most therapists do offer a free consultation. Get on there for them 15 minutes and see if you and the therapist are a good fit. That's really why I even have it because I don't want to get with someone that I feel like is not a good fit or I can't help.
Right.
So it's for you and the therapist. And that's why I was saying that resource is so important because I even tell you what to ask, sis, when you get to the consultation.
Yes.
Okay. And listen, if they not answering my questions right, then just keep on moving. Okay.
Yeah.
But I tell you everything to ask. So that's a really, really good resource that I created. So
I love
yeah.
that. I love that. So you guys, as you can see, we're talking about this and we really just want it to be open and transparent from both of our ends.
Mm-hmm.
Um Therapy, depression, it's real. It looks different for us, and that's okay. And here are some things that you want to consider when you think even if you don't think you're depressed, watch this
Yeah.
video anyway. If you're feeling
Yeah.
off, watch this video anyway. Because I thought
Yeah.
I was just off a little bit. I thought I was
Yeah.
just a little tired. I thought I just needed a little bit of time to reset. And
Yes. Yes.
I needed some additional help, and that's okay. So please make sure you consider all of those things. And then I love that Dr. April has an amazing resource for you to get some exact questions on how to really vet
Mm-hmm.
your therapist, because here's the thing, you're both vetting each other and that's normal.
Yep.
That's a part of the process. That's what you should expect.
Right.
So do it well. Don't be scared of it. Allow it to be a part of the process. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. So, in addition to that, I also want to make sure you know, please, this has been such a good conversation. So go on over there and subscribe to Dr. April's channel. I'm already subscribed. So make
Yes.
sure you go over there and get subscribed. Okay. Make
Yes.
sure
Yes.
you get subscribed. Tell them the name of your YouTube channel one more time, or your handle over there.
Yes. Yes, y'all can find me on all socials, including Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube at the Wellness Room ATL. That's my
Yes.
handle.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And then for me, I talked a little bit about my coaching program. I talked a little bit about how I help my clients, but I really want you to remember that the core of what I help my clients do is reinvent their identity without work as the core and then become that
Mhm.
woman. And what that means is that we are actually looking at today, you are in this place where you feel stuck, you feel uninspired, you want to change, but you're not sure how to get started or even how to start doing it. And
Mhm.
that's where I come in, because I'm going to come in, I'm going to help you pull out who are the characteristics of who you are, not what you do, but who you are. What's your why?
Mhm.
What's your values? And then help you get into dreaming again, and then shift your life to actually live that dream rather than all of the pressure and the responsibility that's been put on you for years and years and years. You don't have to stay in this place. Your life doesn't have to stay this way. Dr. April is helping you get free from your depression, and I'm helping you get free from the stuck feeling that you have. So I would love for you to check out my program. It's called Meant for More, and you can check that out at meantformore.yourdreamstrategist.com. And again, it's a coaching program helping you make that shift. I have been on this shift
I love that.
from really reinventing my identity as work as the core. I mean, we didn't talk a lot about, I'll talk about my story a little bit more on another video, but I was a fashion designer, and I was like, you know what, this is for the birds. I know that I'm meant for more than just coming to this job every day. I'm good
Mhm.
at it, but that's not enough for me. I had all the stuff, but that's not enough for
Yeah.
me. I even paid off all my debt and was debt free. Like I literally could have been living large. but that was not enough for me. And so I quit my job
Mhm.
and I went on this adventure to really figure out who is Rashida and what do I want my life to look like. And I've shifted
Yes.
it to that. I love my life. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I have my depressed days because life is still hard. Just because I love my life doesn't mean it's not hard. But yet I
Mhm.
love getting up and doing what I do every single day. And if you are looking for that kind of inspiration in your life, then you need to check out my program. So again, that's meantformore.yourdreamstrategist.com. So, you guys, hasn't it been good having Dr. April on here? Dr. April, thank you so much. Thank you so much
You're
for doing
welcome.
this with
That
me.
was so wonderful. Thank you. And I love what you're doing. It's amazing. And, I just want to say too, like, just depending on what type of coaching program it is, you definitely could do therapy and coaching simultaneously. Anything that's going to help you be a better version of yourself, you have to do it. Like,
Mm.
life's too short. So I love what you're offering the women that come to your channel. It's amazing. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
love
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. And you know what?
Yeah.
I appreciate you, all of you watching today. So make sure you take some time. If this, listen, we had a whole vibe going on. Again, we're going to have to do this live
Yes.
next time. But thank you so much for joining us on this pre recorded today. And we look forward to catching up with you next time. Bye bye.